Hey there, this is Tony Gaddis, author of Starting Out with Java. In this video, we're going to look at the time calculator problem at the end of Chapter 3 in your textbook, and we're going to work through one way that you can write a solution for this problem. Okay, well, let's look at the problem. We're to write a program that asks the user to enter a number of seconds. So the user is going to enter something like 60 seconds or 1,000 seconds or 200,000 seconds, some value like that. And then the program is to do some processing of that input. First, it tells us there are 60 seconds in a minute. So if the number of seconds that the user entered is greater than or equal to 60, the program should display the number of minutes in that many seconds. So if the user enters 120 seconds, then the program would display a message indicating that there are 2 minutes in 120 seconds. And then the problem tells us there are 3,600 seconds in an hour. So if the number of seconds that the user entered is greater than or equal to 3,600, we display the number of hours in that many seconds. And then last, there are 86,400 seconds in a day. So if the number of seconds that the user entered is greater than or equal to 86,400, we're to display a message indicating the number of days in that many seconds. Before we go into the editor and start writing actual Java code, let's list the steps that the program should take. Let's design the algorithm using pseudocode, and then we can translate the pseudocode into actual Java code. So the first thing that the program should do is get a number of seconds from the user. Once we've got the seconds, then we need to determine if this number of seconds is greater than or equal to 60. So we'll have an if statement, and once again I'm writing pseudocode. This is not actual Java code, so I'm just going to say if seconds greater than or equal to 60. And if that's true, we want to do a couple of things. We want to calculate the number of minutes that are in that many seconds, and then we want to display the number of minutes. And I'll just put a little note here that says end if to indicate that that's the end of the if statement. Okay, so that takes care of this requirement. Now the next requirement is that we display the number of hours in the number of seconds if the number of seconds is greater than or equal to 3,600. So we're going to have another if statement. If seconds greater than or equal to 3,600, we're going to calculate the number of hours, and then we're going to display the number of hours. And I'll just put an end if there. That's the end of the if statement. And so that takes care of the second requirement. The third requirement here is to display the number of days if the seconds are greater than or equal to 86,400. So that means we're going to have another if statement. If seconds greater than or equal to 86,400, calculate the number of days and display the number of days. And that's the end of the if statement. So that should take care of all of the requirements of the programming problem. Now, before we actually start writing Java code, we need to think a bit about the calculations that we're going to perform. We have 3 calculations listed here in the algorithm, but we haven't given any details as to how we're going to perform those calculations. The first is to calculate minutes. how are we going to do that? Well, there are 60 seconds in a minute. So we would calculate minutes as seconds divided by 60. What about hours? Well, that would be a similar calculation. There are 3,600 seconds in an hour, so we would calculate hours as seconds divided by 3,600, and we would perform a similar calculation for days. There are 86,400 seconds in a day, so we would divide seconds by 86,400. Okay, now I think we have enough of our algorithm design that we can actually start writing Java code. Now, what I would suggest that you do at this point, you can actually take this pseudocode, given that you can read my handwriting, of course. Sorry about the messy handwriting, but we've got enough information here that you could actually open up your Java editor and you could actually start writing code. And I would suggest that you do that. Now, I'm going to show you my Java code here in just a second, but I would recommend that you pause the video at this point, open up your Java editor, and see if you can go ahead and write the solution. Then when you're finished, restart the video and I'll show you my code. Okay, well, let's bring the editor up and I'll show you my code. Now, in my program, I chose to use JOption pane for all of the input and output. You could use either JOption pane or the scanner class. The choice is yours. I'm using JOption pane, so I need this import statement at the top of my program. My public class is named TimeCalc, and then this is the beginning of the main method. Inside the main method, I have two local variables, a double named seconds. We're going to use that to hold the number of seconds. And then I have a string variable named input. Now, you'll recall that when we use JOption pane, when we use the the input dialog box that JOption pane gives us, the dialog box always gives us the user's input as a string. Well, we're going to use this variable input to hold the input that the user typed into the dialog box, and then you have to convert that string into the numeric data type that you're actually looking for. So that's the purpose of that variable. Now, next I have the declarations of three constants: seconds per minute, seconds per hour, and seconds per day. The reason that I declared these constants is that it's going to make the code more readable. If you'll recall back in the program description, we had some values, some numeric values that do not change throughout the program's execution. 60 is the number of seconds in a minute, 3,600 is the seconds in an hour, and 86,400 is the seconds in a day. We're going to be using those values throughout this program. We're going to use them in some if statements, and we're going to use them in some calculations. And rather than just throwing in these numbers, 60, 3,600, 86,400, those numbers by themselves don't really reveal what they mean. But if we define these constants and we use the constants in our code, then it makes the code more self-documenting. Anyone like your instructor who might be reading the code will be able to look at it and easily understand what's going on. Next, we have this code, which gets the number of seconds from the user. The first statement calls the JOption pane class's show input dialog box, prompting the user for the number of seconds, and then the input will be stored here in the input variable. Then the next statement calls double.parseDouble to convert the value in input to a double and assign that to the seconds variable. Next in our program, we have the series of if statements. So let's look at each one of those. Here's the first if statement. If seconds greater than or equal to seconds per minute. Well, if that's true, then we want to calculate the number of minutes. And you'll notice that Here inside the if statement, I've declared another double variable named minutes, and I've initialized it with the result of the calculation, seconds divided by seconds per minute. Then I call the JOptionPane class's showMessageDialog method to display the message there are so many minutes in so many seconds. Then we have the next if statement, which determines whether seconds is greater than or equal to seconds per hour. And if that's so, then we want to display the number of hours. So inside this if statement, I've declared a double variable named hours, and I've initialized it with the result of seconds divided by seconds per hour. Then we show a message dialog with the message there are so many hours in so many seconds. And then we have the last if statement that determines whether seconds is greater than or equal to seconds per day. And if that's the case, then we have a variable days initialized with the value of seconds divided by seconds per day, and then we display a message indicating the number of days. Of course, in my program, the last thing that I do is call system.exit. Now, I need this because I'm using JOptionPane. You don't need this statement if you're using the scanner class. Okay, well, let's run the program and see if it works. First, I'll compile the program, and now I'll run the program. Enter the number of seconds. Well, let's try 120 seconds. And it tells us that there are 2 minutes and 120 seconds. Okay, let's run the program again. And this time, let's enter 7200. It tells us there are 120 minutes and 2 hours in 7200 seconds. And that's correct. Let's run the program one more time. Let's try 86,400. That should be 1 day. 1,440 minutes, 24 hours, and 1 day.